Hey, fun fans! We're giving away a Devastator 3 keyboard and mouse combo courtesy of Cooler Master on YouTube for this month of June. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to Fun's YouTube channel and leave a comment on which state or region you think will be the next to go to districts. You can enter once per upload, and we'll pick a winner near the end of June.
Our last topic for tonight is expanding on a popular Chief Delphi thread that talks about Minnesota and the possibility of this state and or neighboring regions going to districts. So before we jump in, we do have a poll to get your opinion on which area you believe will go to districts first. Go to tinyurl.com/recap1812 poll and let us know which region you think will go to districts first. This is going to be exciting. All right. I'm really curious. So let's give some backstory. For the 2018 season, Minnesota was the third most populous region with 215 teams registered. To give you some history, there was only one Minnesota team in 2006, which was Team 1816, and had a burst of new teams form each year since. Even this season alone, Minnesota added 12 rookies, and that's substantial. Which such a large amount of teams there haven't been to enough regionals to fully allow two plays for many teams, especially with outside states coming into play as well. Currently, there are 4 regionals in Minnesota and 2 satellite regionals located on the border of neighboring states, Wisconsin and North Dakota, that have strong Minnesota influence. There are some strong cases for Minnesota to both go to districts and stay in the traditional model. Texas, which has 52 less teams but larger geographical areas, will be going to districts for the 2019 season. Yet, according to a district growth graph by P. Child on Delphi, Chesapeake, Indiana, Mar, and the PNW districts have seen either flat or regressive growth since moving to a district format. On top of this, First seems to have lost much of its steam for districts, leaving many to question if this should be a viable model. Sky, we are delighted to have you on tonight and on here and to give your perspective. Your team 876 competes in Minnesota for events, and now the Great Northern Regional located on the border of Minnesota in Grand Forks. There's also been talks about Minnesota, if Minnesota were to go to districts, that they could bring in neighboring states as well. I really want to hear your perspective on this coming from a rural town, less than 1,000 people, of how this could both be a positive or negative thing in Minnesota if they decide to go to districts, both with or without North Dakota. So what are your thoughts, Sky?
All right. So you just kind of have to realize how big of an area, first off, that we're talking about. Minnesota is not a small state. And on top of that, if you throw North Dakota and South Dakota, if there's growth and, right next door, between those two states, you're getting, 150% of the area of Minnesota, if not more. And so I just kind of wanted to address the thread outright just a little bit. It had a lot of heated discussion in it, of course, a bit of circular conversation. And I'm going to try to stay away from the financial bit of all that, because those are problems that have been solved before, and I don't really know a lot about that. Sure, they're a component, but there's definitely other factors at play. I'd also like to, in this whole discussion, because this comes up every year, at least with one of these 3 regions between New York, Minnesota, and California, is kind of this us versus them deal between districts and regionals. It's really the same ends to a means, right? Or means to an end. So it doesn't help kind of blindly following one kind of argument or the other. All right, with that out of the way. So when I first got involved in 2011, the thing that made me fall in love with First, and kind of First's whole message and stuff, was kind of the production value of the Minnesota Regional. And this comes up again and again, how well Minnesota runs regionals. Now, sure, they get full, and there's lots of, dare I say, politics on how that all works out. But that was kind of like the key point on, I'm sure I would have still been in it, but that really made me latch on. So that's my biggest fear is loss of production value with a shift to districts. Not to say it can't be done, keep the production value up, but keeping everybody inspired and, really keep the drive up in Minnesota. We're kind of, whether it be to our benefit or detriment.
I think we lost you there.
The production value in Minnesota, whether it be to the benefit or detriment, people expect a lot So either everybody's going to have to quell their expectations for a couple of years while things get up and rolling, or yeah. So now, kind of with trying not to make this too long of a monologue here, kind of to look at this area in general as to why this argument kind of is so polar sometimes. So it's of course like this in other parts of the country and in other parts of the world, but you're dealing with one major metropolitan center, so Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a large rural area. And all these towns are 10 miles apart and 1,000 people and have high schools of 150 or so high school students, which leads to a lot of, like you have to balance how long students can be gone and stuff like that. And that's something that I don't think a lot of other places in the country get. I don't know if you guys can chime in here, but like just excessive amounts of small towns. Anybody?
Yeah. So, I mean, New England obviously isn't identical at all to Minnesota, but it's interesting hearing you talk about like wanting the production quality to be really high, because when New England went into district events, that was something that the board of directors was very adamant about, was making sure that the quality of the event still felt like a regional for, the teams that were attending. And we're unfortunate in New England that we don't have a lot of like big high schools, like regional high schools like Texas has, and even Indiana, who has these, gigantic high schools. So we were trying to bring the production value of, a regional feel to like a high school or a university. And the cost of that is unbelievable from, somebody who runs events, and looking at, the end budget makes me, want to cringe or, go buy a house instead of paying for a regional or a district event. But I can totally understand that point. But at the same time, I can see both sides of the fence. And it's interesting hearing you talk about the demographics or just like the layout of Minnesota. We have a mentor on 125 who's from Minnesota. And it's been really interesting hearing about her experience as a high school student on a team from Minnesota. And now she's in the city working with, a team that's in a district area. So it's been a lot of fun for her to kind of experience this versus what she was experiencing in Minnesota. But there are teams that we have up in Maine who have to travel upwards of at least like, minimum 6 hours to get to a district event outside of Maine. So they're the minority in that situation, though, where, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, there's, 2 events at least within, an hour, or they can drive home at night, where these teams from Maine are going to have to travel some insane amount of time to get to events. And I'm sure that's going to be similar for Texas too. So, I mean, it's definitely something that is going to be very specific for Minnesota, though, I think, from what you've said and what others have said, that it's going to be pretty typical versus, one facet or subset of your district. If you go.
Yeah. And if you look at Minnesota, I mean, people have, in that thread, they went through and, cherry-picked towns. I mean, of course, you have to do that. There has to be the facilities. But, I mean, even with just Great Northern popping up in essentially my backyard, that cut travel times for quite a few teams in half or less. I mean, just for 876, we had to travel. Our nearest was Duluth, which was 5 hours away, if not more, actually 5.5. So, and then, the cities, and you've got Iowa, and you've got, all that stuff. And a lot of Minnesota itself, just keeping within the state, there's a fair number of teams up in the northwest of Minnesota. I mean, 5172, the Gators. I mean, they're essentially world renowned at this point, and they do not have a short bus ride. So
do you think, though, that like, are there venues or facilities that could host a district event? Obviously not to the regional level, because from what I've heard from our mentor Claire, she absolutely loves the regionals in Minnesota because of the venues and how amazing, the production quality is. Do you think, though, that it would be feasible for, say, like a high school or, some sort of large recreational center to host an event? And it may not be the most glamorous thing ever, but, having pit space, having field space, seating for teams, like, are those, venues actually available, like in these kind of small towns that are really spread out?
Well, you're not going to have a district in a town of 1,000. So if we just exclude a lot of those, like maybe look at War Road or Roseau or whatever, you have the high schools, and then you have the hockey arenas, which if you know anything about Minnesota, you're not competing with the hockey during that time. You just can't do it. Nor would I want to, having played in high school. But so that's another kind of dynamic that you need to work around, is there's demand for these venues during this time period. And then between all that, just to expedite this along a little bit, with regard to some of these small school districts and rather conservative area of the country, you see money's coming in based off of students, so you don't want to. They don't sometimes just your generic district doesn't want to have a bunch of students gone a bunch of the time, especially if it's a small high school. And then you have essentially student travel days that they aren't really a thing. It's just when students are gone, and by the time you drop in, even if it's over the weekend, 2 district events, further on a district champ event, and Worlds, that's a lot of days gone from school. And I understand it's a lot of days gone from school for everybody else, like anywhere else in the country. But I mean, look, it's just starts once you compress things down to these smaller numbers, it has bigger impact.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, so in New England, something that we started shifting to after probably the second or third year, because of not only students being out of school, but mainly because we couldn't get volunteers during the week to come to our events, was shifting it to Friday load in, Saturday, Sunday competition. Obviously, that means that Sunday is going to be like some sort of substantial travel for some teams, and it means you're going to be exhausted on Monday. But it at least allowed a lot more volunteers to come in. We didn't have to, beg the same volunteers who are able to get off of work to come in and work all these events over and over. And a lot of students were able to not miss school because of it. Load-ins at 5 o'clock, you go right from school. So, I mean, there is flexibility in there, but I can totally understand it's not going to necessarily work out that well for everybody. Like everybody's travel.
And that's the argument for Minnesota. That's.
It's interesting to hear about this, and when we were talking about how it's like, well, everybody else got a district. Why aren't you guys? It's like when one person gets engaged at work and everybody's like, when are you going to get engaged? Like, when are you having babies? It's like, whoa, relax. Like, not everybody has to follow down the same path as, all these districts. So.
All right, guys, we got to take a quick break here to start the giveaway. And I do want to show the poll results first. Nick, if you don't mind putting that up for me. Looks like California right now leading the votes for who's going to go districts first. Is that behind WoW, if that looks right? I don't have the actual poll. I'm trying to look up.
South Carolina would be in second, I think.
South Carolina and WoW are tied right now, it looks like.
I think it's the other way. Minnesota and WoW are tied. I got it up.
That's not what I'm seeing on mine. So.
Oh. All right.
I don't know. Maybe they're not up to date, but with 40 votes right now, California is showing as the district. Nope, no worries on there. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and start our giveaway here, and then we're going to continue this great conversation that we had. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get ready for that from Team 3132, Thunder Down Under, raising money to help that team in Tasmania that lost everything, the flooding that we were talking about. So, if you're interested in winning right now, by the way, if you're watching with buddies, make sure you get into Twitch right now and get ready to it's tied with China. Yeah.
Can I please be included?
Yeah, I'm not going to take you out, Mike.
I don't believe you.
I don't think you should believe them, to be honest.
So, I actually have not taken you out. I promise you, I have not.
Ever?
So. No, that's not true. For this stream, we're not taking you out. So,
Mike, you just need a Twitch alter ego, just so Tyler doesn't know about.
That's true. Just sub twice. Problem solved. All right. So, with that said, guys, so if you're interested in winning, make sure you click that follow button up there, or for 5 times luck, become a subscriber. You can do so for free through Twitch Prime, or it's just $5 a month. Either way, help support our stream. We appreciate that. We're going to be listing off everybody who has donated, by the way, at the end of the stream, either via Twitch Prime subscriptions, donations, that sort of thing like that. So right now, I actually gave you the keyword earlier for the discount, but the keyword for today is Koala Fun, one word, KOALAFUN, and we're going to draw a winner in a few minutes. And don't forget, you can use that keyword to go ahead and purchase the shirt if you're interested. I just put in the link in chat. If you're interested in purchasing the shirt, you get 10% off with Koala Fun. Good luck, everybody. So do you want to jump in here and ask a couple things? Sky, you brought up a really good point on something that kind of an easy, I think, thing is when people compare Minnesota to maybe Texas, right? You have a couple areas that are pretty similar size. Texas is a little bit bigger geographically with less teams, and they went district. But I think you brought up a really good point, is that Minnesota really only has one key metropolitan area, right? There's Rochester. But it's not. Let's be honest with you. I mean, it's not even close. You compare it to Texas that has several cities that are over 1 million people. Minnesota has one city or one group of cities really that's over that metro area that's around that. So I thought that was a really interesting point to think about, because Texas does have these speckles of population kind of in many different areas, not quite everywhere, but one thing I wanted to ask you on this is that, for 876 perspective, I mean, there's kind of, if Minnesota were to ever go districts, let's say it's Minnesota 2028 or whatever year it is, right? Let's say they do go to districts. What would the potential impact be if they decide to say, hey, North Dakota, we're just going with the Minnesota High School League, and that's all we're doing, guys. Have a good day. How would that impact your team?
So provided it doesn't happen in the next 2 or 3 years, there's been, especially with the Great Northern Regional popping up, there's been a huge push to get teams kind of along the I-29 Red River Valley corridor, so the eastern third of the state, call it. So at that point, hopefully there'd be somewhere in the neighborhood, especially if you include South Dakota with any luck, to get enough teams to run a small regional. I don't know if that's actually the way it's going, but so maybe what you're trying to get at is would 876 really care if we were included or not? I mean, we're a fair ways away from the border. We're a whole county away. So we're used to the travel. We've done regionals way outside of Minnesota. And
it's pretty much your options are what? Iowa, Wisconsin, maybe, but they might be going districts in a couple of years.
We've done Central Illinois.
Okay.
So that's somewhere we're mildly familiar with. I mean, it's
I forgot to include Illinois in the poll. That would have been a great question. Sorry for people in Illinois.
And I mean, there's of course it really drags us kicking and screaming back to the early years, right, where the closest regional was Chicago. But I mean, most of this is really just focused around team growth, which is something we've been trying to do since 2007. So it's really like 5 cents one way, nickel the other, right? I mean, sure, we'd love to get in, but if not, we're not out of options. And part of that is, at least for us in particular, we have a very supportive group of school boards, so that helps us. But I'm going to broaden the question. Would it hinder growth in North Dakota and South Dakota if Minnesota did this? Yes. It would cut out that option for teams that are looking to, step it up out of the, out of kind of the rookie second year footprint of only going to one event. So I guess that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, you're good. I just kind of want to know, like, from your perspective, what that would be like, or what your options are essentially. Should they go through, something in chat just said, hey, we'll just grow North Dakota even more, right? And yeah, that's possible, right?
It very well could. So, it's again kind of that small town dynamic where you just kind of need to plant the seed and just get the community involved around it, just because something to do, sort of deal.
One thing I want to say,
and that's what we're working on. That's what us and Minnesota and Fargo and all those teams are working on over the course of this summer and into the fall. It's getting that seed planted, getting people excited.
I'll just give one more response. I'd love to hear Mike and Justin's response too. Is that when Michigan went districts, there was a huge uproar with the UP, right? The Upper Peninsula of Michigan having their minimum drive went from being about 5 hours, because you could drive to like Chicago, Milwaukee type area, to about 8 hours for their nearest district. For about, when was the first district in the UP? Like 2014, something like that, I think.
Yeah.
So there's definitely going to be bumps along the road no matter what. And I'm really interested because First really seems to have lost steam in pushing for districts nowadays, because now they lose some control, because districts are essentially a franchise now, and First loses some of that control over those franchises to do things exactly the way they want. Like a great example would be the webcast kits. The districts don't get the webcast kits. They can buy them if they want to, but who's going to buy, multi-$1,000 pieces of machinery when you have, areas like P&W that already have great kits? So it's interesting to see if we're really going to see many more districts down the road at all. So Mike, Justin, do you guys have anything you want to chime in?
So I love these district talks, and I know we've talked about California before, and I just think so much goes into switching these states or regions into districts. There's just each region kind of brings their own unique challenges, and we heard from Sky tonight about those that are in Minnesota, and it just takes so much to get the ball rolling. To really get it pushed over. There's so many obstacles and stuff. So I really appreciate Sky coming on to kind of fill us in on the inside of Minnesota and what it's going to take to get them into districts. And I don't know, without, this is, first for 95% of the people is voluntary, so that means people already have full-time jobs and families and lives outside of robotics. So for people to put in so much time, Mike Corsetto comes to mind for California, to put in so much effort to get this in place, if it's not a quick process, this is something that takes months and years to get going. So if you don't have a core group of people that are willing to commit that much, like you said, Tyler, this may not, districts may not, be that often anymore in the near future. So,
yeah, I'm going to add to that real quick, because it's something that has been an interesting discussion among myself and other people within New England who are, those core group of serial volunteers that, on top of mentoring a team and, having a job and trying to have a life, outside of all of that, are the ones that are continuously over and over again, chairing events, right. Working behind the black curtain throughout the entire year to make sure that stuff within our own district is happening. And it's great being in a district because we do get, all this extra bonus stuff. But from a standpoint of trying to see where, my district in particular, New England, we're in our 5th or 6th year at this point within our district. Mm-hmm. And from a standpoint of somebody who's running an event and also, events, S on the end of that, because I run many events and mentoring a team, I'm not seeing, a clear vision or an end game. And without that, and that core group of people, whether it's your paid staff from your district or paid staff from First that have that same vision, mm-hmm. you're just going to be running on this hamster wheel and not necessarily growing. And it's interesting being in a district that's multi-state, because, within our own state, we need to fundraise for our events, or, certain states are hosting their own fundraisers to benefit their own events and their own programs. And not all of our, first family of programs are under the district umbrella. It's incredibly confusing. And when you don't necessarily have the support structure that's running the district itself, it tends to fall back on the same people that are the ones that are mentoring their teams and running multiple events. And it's not a very transparent thing to the teams that are, handing over the registration fees or, being asked to fundraise for their district. And as somebody that has tried their very best, as a chair, I try to be as transparent as possible with teams. This is our venue. These are kind of the boundaries that I have to provide you the best event that I can. I try to give that transparency, but when the district itself isn't being transparent about, okay, well, this is where your registration fee is going. This is our, 5-year plan. This is what we want to see happen. And this is what we need for you to help. It's where are we going? What are we doing? So I think looking at districts like Michigan, Michigan is the end all to districts, in my opinion, because they've done a great job of having that core foundation mm-hmm. of people that are running the district. And they're also involving their state government, and it's taken off like crazy. But I feel if you don't have that core group of people and an end game, or at least a plan, you're just going to be kind of in this district model, and it's going to be good from the outside perspective. But the people that are over volunteering themselves, and wondering what's going on, it's incredibly frustrating from that standpoint. there's the end of my rant. And I would love to talk more and more about it and provide transparency to people who don't have an understanding of the amount of effort and exhaustion that goes into providing these events to teams. Like, my one goal as a volunteer has always been to provide the best experience to students and teams as possible. Like, they are the customers, and I think districts provide a big opportunity for that. But when the people that are running the district that are paid aren't doing it, you're kind of screwed at that point. So
absolutely. Justin, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, we're just in the, I feel like I've said this for a few years now. We're just in the beginning stages of talking about districts in New York.
For several years now.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it is starting to pick up maybe a little bit more steam than it has been in the past. Right now, we're just kind of in the process of trying to develop a unified message that we can send out to teams to educate them on the benefits of districts. I think in New York, I mean, Finger Lakes has been a regional, or had a regional since 2005. So most people in New York, like the Finger Lakes Regional, or in upstate New York, I should say, the Finger Lakes Regional is our event. And then down in New York City, Long Island, they have the New York City Regional, the Long Island Regional. That's been their event. As far as those places that are 7 hours apart, there hasn't been much else. Now a few other smaller regionals have popped up in Tech Valley and Hudson Valley, and so there's starting to be a little bit more in the middle of the state. But right now, the hiccup we've always run into in New York for the past 5 or 6 years has been, where is the district championship going to be? Because for the Rochester teams, we don't want to go necessarily 7 hours to New York City, and teams that are in New York City and on Long Island, it's not always easy for those teams to make long trips to upstate New York. Even a 5-hour trip out of the city can be a complete deal breaker for teams that are really in New York City and on Long Island. So trying to figure out how to bring these groups together or not bring them together is still a huge huge thing. But for us right now, we're just trying to educate every team in the state about the advantage of districts. Once they see the advantages or the perceived advantages, then hopefully we'll get more momentum and build more steam, and hopefully reach this critical mass of people we can lean on in different areas of the state and really make it happen. Because a lot of teams in Rochester look at it and say, well, why don't we just join the Ontario district? St. Catharines is 90 minutes over the board from us. That's much better than going 6 or 7 hours to a district championship somewhere else. Toronto's only a few hours away. Ohio's only 4 hours away. All these places are still closer than New York City. And then New York City is the same argument. There are areas around them, and Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, and Mar that's closer for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's a process.
All right. Any last thoughts on districts in general, or Minnesota districts?
I just would, I gotta thank, Mike Corsetto and Alan Gregory and other people I've talked to, Jim Zondag, about district events in their area and getting districts going in their area. And I've had several questions in the past couple of weeks reaching out to these guys, and they've been super helpful with answering questions and giving me documentation and all sorts of stuff. So if you're interested in being involved in getting districts going in your area, there's a lot of really helpful people that you can reach out to answer even some of your kind of dumbest questions. So I can't thank them enough for that.
I have to jump in. I greatly apologize. I accidentally reset the giveaway, so I need people to re-enter.
Right.
I'm really sorry.
No.
I just want more people to chat. I'm sorry, guys. You need to type in Qualifon again. I refreshed the page on accident, so sorry about that. We'll wait another minute to do the giveaway. Sky, there was a question in chat I do want to ask you on here from Electron Official. Do you think that smaller events that can feasibly be held outside of the major metropolitan areas of MSP, the metropolitan area, and Duluth would help cut travel times for middle of nowhere teams?
Well, I mean, you answered your own question in there. If it's held outside of then yes, it will cut travel time. But speaking to the larger question, absolutely. I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to say because I was kind of not necessarily involved.
You can say everything.
No, I can't. I was an ear to the Great Northern Regional, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And initially, it was looked at to be held in Thief River Falls, but again, hockey conflict for the venue. So I mean, there's plenty of those smaller towns. Well, larger than my town, whatever.
Thief River Falls is in Minnesota, right?
Yeah. Thief River Falls is.
It's a little northeast of Minnesota,
for ease of just overgeneralized location, it's between Grand Forks and Bemidji. That's super simplified and not necessarily correct, but it's generally that area. It was looked for there. And I mean, Thief River Falls isn't a huge town by any stretch of the imagination, but it has a venue that can support that many, or 30 some odd teams, maybe pushing 40.
And there is a Quality Inn and a Grand Stay Hotel there, so we're in good shape.
Yeah, well, yeah, only one. That's another thing, right? It's the ability to stay places, and even if you get half the teams coming in, just driving in, that leaves you kind of a disadvantage, right?
And a McDonald's. All right.
Right.
There you go. So, there's your coffee stop in the morning. What more do you need?
Done.
There's some logistical issues, yes. So that's where places like Bemidji come in, but that way, then you're halfway across the state again. So short answer, yes, there's small venues and small places that can host it that will minimize distance for everybody. And you can throw this into a computer with ArcGIS and get it all to crunch the numbers and spit out places. But it just happens that the major places that can support this logistically are in the eastern and southern bit of Minnesota. You don't have anything in the Arrowhead, so sorry. Yeah, I guess that kind of answers the question.
No, appreciate it. All right, we got to start wrapping up here, guys, I think.
Yeah, so I just want to do a quick reminder before we do that we have great shows weekly, every Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So next Tuesday we have Finalysis with strategic breakdowns, and on Wednesday we have our FTC live show for those who want to be in the know for FTC. Don't forget to join our Discord, like us on Facebook, and stay up to date on all things fun.
Absolutely. We do have to do that, Jerron. It looks like everybody was able to get back in, at least I think, because we had about the same amount of people enter as what was before I accidentally deleted. Sorry about that once again. Let me unselect Mike's. Oh, just kidding. All right, we're going to go ahead and roll for that shirt once again. And the winner is
Mike.
Evan S2410, subscriber. Thank you very much for subscribing, by the way, and supporting fun. You have won the shirt. Please shoot me a message, Evan, either on Discord or on Twitch here. Congratulations. And thanks again to Thunder Donder for not only providing the shirt, but for the Qual Foundation and helping that team from Tasmania out. And if you're interested in promoting something on air, we do ask that you do a giveaway for that so we can help generate more interest for it. But shoot us a message either on Facebook or shoot me an email at admin@firstupdatesnow.com.
All right. So
rigged emotes, by the way. Sorry.
Always.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, now it's truly rigged because you just admitted. That you just
Sorry, Mike.
No, you're not. Thank you to everyone who has watched tonight. And if you want more First Robotics in your life and you like what we do, all we ask is you to let others know about this show. And this is the place to go to for FRC in their lives. If you've got a few bucks to share, we appreciate it sincerely as what we do here, as it helps us to create more shows and honestly lets us know that you value our work. But if not, we totally understand that as well. I'm just delighted that you guys are here hanging out with us.
Well, speaking of which, Mike, let's recognize those who have donated. Not too many people subscribing for the show, but we did get some big ones here. So we do want to give a big shout out. And guys, if you can subscribe, we definitely appreciate it. Like I said, we're doing weekly shows. And we need that. We kind of have this threshold we need to hit to keep doing that. So appreciate that. But VanJan14 with their Twitch subscription, MN Districts in 2019 for their 1,010 bits. Thank you very much. Electron Official for subscribing through Prime. KR10 Jack 5,000 bits for their height for the Midnight Mayhem. Very exciting. C Papple Family for their Prime subscription. And Caltran 2410, 17 months of support. Wow, buddy.
What a guy.
Thank you so much. Caltran says, claims this comes with 5x luck. Still skeptical on that. Oh, man, we're almost at our second baby, Tyler. Wow. 18 months, Caltran, then we're having our second baby, apparently. Yeah, and you get cool emotes, guys, and we'd love to hear more emails. We're probably not going to get any new ones for a while just because summer is a little bit slower, but we're still going strong with subscriptions, and we thank everybody for that as well. Thanks, Caltrain, and thank you to everybody else for your support as well. So with that said, before we go, hey guys, we're going to go raid Libby Kamen right now. So I'm going to type in the command for that and get ready to do it. But her Twitch handle, Caltrain, if you don't mind typing it, is Askesian. And I gotta type this in. It's hard to spell. ASKESIENNE. So I'll get ready to raid that. We're gonna do that right when we end the show. But just go, spam her. I mean, type nicely in her chat and say hi and check out her stream and what she's streaming right now. Thanks, Caltran. But with that said, guys, thank you to everybody who's watched. On behalf of myself, Mike, Justin, Christine, our producer behind the scenes, Nick, I want to thank you for tuning in. Thanks a lot, Sky, for being an awesome guest, giving your input on the Minnesota districts as well as a recap as well. And guys, we'll talk to you coming up soon next week, next Tuesday on First Updates Now. Talk to you then. Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by viewers like you. Fun relies on the generous support of our fans in order to continue to keep creating content. Please consider donating, giving bits, or subscribing. Subscribe for a few bucks a month or for free through Twitch Prime. And don't forget that our subscribers get 5x chance to win on all giveaways.